type those questions in. Alrighty. So today's webinar is titled Everything You Wanted to Know About Building Design Suite, but we're afraid to ask. It's going to be conducted by myself, Brendan Upton, and I'm joined here by Samuel Mcalister from Autodesk. And we'll have a little bit of an introduction to ourselves in a minute. So just a bit about the agenda quickly today. So we're going to be going through, we'll have just a bit of a quick introduction about ATK technologies. We're then going to cover some of the new features of Revit MEP. We'll do introduction to Navisworks Manage and Recap. We're then going to look at some of the new features applicable to Revit architecture, and then we'll finish up with an introduction to Infraworks and 3ds Max design. So a little bit about ATK technologies. We're an industry-leading solutions training, consulting, and management firm specialising in the design technology space. So we have about over 150 staff and growing across Australia, New Zealand, and China. We are an Autodesk Platinum partner, the largest channel partner in Australia, and on top of that, we are chock full of highly knowledgeable and industry experienced staff and tech support staff to carry out that training and consulting services that we offer through the business. So this slide is just giving you a bit of an idea about some of the areas that we are in. We are not solely around the Autodesk products, although that is obviously a major part of our business, but we do have capabilities to serve you in some of these other areas as well, with hardware and some of the other softwares and services that you can see on the screen there, HP and Microsoft. This screen is just showing a little bit more about the breadth and depth of what we offer. So obviously the software, supplying the software is a big part of the business. But on top of that, we also do offer the training and support to complement those softwares, and we can offer customized consulting and training for you out there. And further to that, we also have the capabilities to supply hardware and also manage IT services. We now offer that as a service now as well. So our value proposition, we have the largest team of resources than any other Autodesk channel partner across Australia and New Zealand. We are striving to always innovate and offer the best solutions that meet the needs of the market. And doesn't matter the size of your company, from one-man bands to the large enterprises, we can deal and serve you all. So it doesn't matter about the size. So just a little bit about myself. So Brendan Upton's my name. I'm a technical consultant, one of the technical consultants here at ATK Technologies. My area is mainly in Revit and in the Revit MEP space, and collaboration and coordination between disciplines in the AEC space and architecture and structure as well. That's me.
Thanks, Brendan. And my name is Samuel Mcalister. I work directly for Autodesk Australia. I'm responsible for building information across ANZ, and I represent about 40 different software applications that are provided by Autodesk Technologies. My background is architecture, where I've worked in New Zealand and the United Kingdom for large building design firms. And I'm across all aspects of building and design construction workflows, from conception through to facilities management, and my qualifications in architecture. A bit of background to the companies that I've worked with. So some of the large global companies like HOK and Building Design Partnership, I was very fortunate to be working in conjunction in design and build roles with large contractors like Langer, Rourke and Balfour Beatty during the starting points of the mandates in the UK BIM workflows. During my time working in the UK, I've done several educational projects, starting way back in the days of using the AutoCAD-based ADT for some of our early educational schools. Also, when the global financial crisis hit everywhere around the world, the UK was heavily hit, so we spent a lot of time using a combination of Revit, AutoCAD, and 3D Max Design to market and win new work. So this tool became crucial for helping us secure new projects. Also, working with Revit Technologies, we were using tools before we even had things like divide and parts to actually build the Revit models for the fabricators. So this is a snapshot of a hospital that I designed in Brighton, and the hospital panels were actually designed to work with Laing O'Rourke's precast concrete factory just north of London called Explore, and we're able to take those components directly from the model to the factory fabrication and create those precast concrete panels and ship them to site. Finally, my role at Autodesk is to evangelize software, and I do get the opportunities occasionally to do some design work internally at Autodesk. This is the Revit demo dataset that shipped with Revit 2014. I got to design this, and it's a couple of snapshots of the original design and some workflows on the right where I'm using some of the tools you get on subscription, like the frame generator, to develop that building right down to all the individual components for quantification and building estimations.
All right, thanks very much, Sam. Okay, so I'm just going to take us now through the first couple of items there on our agenda. So we're going to have a look at Revit MEP, and then we're going to have a bit of an overview look at the Navisworks and the recap tools in 2015. So let's get moving. Okay, so new features in Revit MEP 2015. Let's just cover the main ones applicable to MEP space specifically to begin with. So the pressure drop calculations have been improved, have been updated somewhat. Okay, so what they have done is they have added a couple of additional equations to calculate the pressure drops in your ducts and pipes in your models. So previously they had just the one equation in there for turbulent flow. They have now added the Harland equation and the Colebrook equation, which will be turbulent and transitional flow equations. So you have the opportunity to choose between now which equation, which calculation you want to use. So a bit more flexibility there. And as I mentioned, that is for both ducts and pipes. The other major update in the mechanical space is with the accurate display and documentation of airflows in your models. Okay, so displaying accurate airflows between and after tapped ducts and pipes. Okay, so previously what was happening in prior to 2015 was that if you had pipes and ducts that were being tapped off a main run, the tags would not be showing the airflow accurately in the system. But they have fixed that now so that you can now display those airflows accurately. You could previously use the System Inspector tool, which would show you the airflows accurately in any branch of the duct or pipe. However, the tags themselves would only display the main, or either the main flow, or would just show a display of multiple values. So they've just added that functionality in so that you've got a bit more accuracy in tagging those features. On the API side of things, specific to MEP, they've opened up now the API on the electrical side a bit further now. So companies out there that have the functionality or the capability, I should say, to tap into the API and do a bit of programming, you now have a bit more leeway into the electrical side, into the API, specifically with wire shapes and being able to add and modify wire properties and remove vertices. So I guess this is encouraging to see that they are opening the API more and more, and specifically over the last few versions of the Revit software, they have been opening up the specific MEP disciplines, which has been quite encouraging. Another new feature that, or new functionality that you'll experience in 2015 is with the way that slope pipes are working and the way they are connecting. So previously, in previous versions, there was a feature or a button that would allow you to ignore the slope to connect, which was quite a handy, could be quite a handy feature. They've updated that somewhat to just add these offset connections. So you now have these new offset connection options, and you can choose between whether you want to add a vertical step down when you're connecting up a slope pipe into a main run, or the equivalent of what was the ignore slope to connect button, which is now this change slope button here. Okay, some of the new features that are specific or that are common, I should say, across the platform of Revit itself. I'll just cover now. Some of these features, though, I think are quite applicable to the MEP and can be quite useful for documentation. So the first one here is this new feature of being able to add images in schedules. So they've added the two parameters into Revit now, a type image parameter and an instance image parameter. Okay, so which allows you to attach a image, a JPEG or a bitmap image file, and so on, to your family components, and then when you schedule those, when you create a schedule for a particular category in Revit, you'll have access to those parameters. So the type image parameter is added into the family itself. You can see on the screen there, you can see the example of where the type image is in the family editor itself. The instance image parameter you'll find in the project. When you're in the project, you select a individual instance of a family or a component in your model, you'll have access to that instance image parameter. You can then schedule, create a schedule and add those images, and then when you actually place the schedule on the sheet is when you'll find where you'll see the images. Another new feature here, which we'll just quickly touch on, is the ability now to be able to link IFC files in. Previously, we could only import into Revit, and it was quite a lengthy process, and could also come up with errors and whatnot. I'm sure some of you have experienced it. You now have the option to link IFC files in, much like you would just link any other Revit model in, and that ability is now without the overhead, obviously, of that conversion to the Revit, to the native Revit geometry format. So you will be able to access the IFC link tab in your Manage Links as well, and in your and in those options there, so you can control those links much like you can control your Revit links. So basically, just improved geometry handling for your projects where you're working across different companies using different software bases. So the building element energy analysis side of things, they've improved some of the algorithms that Revit's using in the background to communicate with tools like Green Building Studio. So there's a greater analytical surface precision and basically just better handling of these elements in Revit to give you more accurate results when you're running your things like your energy analysis and so on. Improvements in the overall performance and the overall back end of the program itself. I'll breeze through this. Samuel's going to touch on this in a bit more detail when he's covering the architectural parts as well. But basically, there are faster drawing elements in views and faster selection graphics. So the drawing call that Revit is asking for when you're actually drawing components in Revit is reducing, and is what it needs to produce those elements and those geometries. So you'll find it's improved, and specific to the MEP as well, they've enhanced the underlying way that MEP components are rendering and on the fly, particularly in 3D views. And so overall, you experience that the program is actually performing faster. Okay, so let's now just jump into and have a quick look at some of the features of Navisworks, how you can use Navisworks for coordination and clash detection. So in Navisworks, it allows you to bring in models from multiple formats, one of them being, of course, Revit. In this first slide here, I'm talking about exporting from Revit to the NWC format. It's important to note that Revit that Navisworks 2015 will read native Revit files, RVT files, so you can bring them in. However, in the next few slides I'll explain a little bit, just briefly, about why we think it's still quite useful, and the workflows are a bit better if you export from Revit here, as is shown on screen, to the NWC format. Okay, so let's go to the next slide. When you append those NWC files into your Navisworks file, once you've exported them out from your Revit model, you can bring them in, and they will come in into your Revit file. So if I go to the next slide, we can see what's called the selection tree here in Navisworks. Okay, so the selection tree over here on the left-hand side of the screen, you can see that it's breaking up a couple of models that I've brought in here. We've got a MEP and a structure model, NWC model. By exporting them to the NWC format, you've got a lot more flexibility and a lot more control through your selection tree and how you can drill into the different layers of geometry. It's a much quicker file format as well to work in with Navisworks, and it's a lot easier to manage those files, particularly if you've got a large data set. Okay, so some of the other features of Navisworks that you can use to your advantage. Okay, so Navisworks has a feature called search sets that you can create. So on the screen here is just a bit of an example of how you can use your Find Items tool here to create some selection criteria or selection rules to find specific elements in your model. So here I've got selected the MEP NWC model, and I've got a rule here that's telling me, right, from all of the properties and the geometry from the element category, I want to find every piece of geometry that contains for that parameter ducts. Okay, so then once I've got that rule defined, I can click Find All, and in the back end you can see that it's selecting the straight bits of duct, okay, as an example. Okay, once I have set that that search tool, I can actually save that search set. Okay, so that I can use it later on in the go. I don't have to come back and run this search rule each and every time. I can save the search set, and if I go to the next screen, you can see that I've now saved that set and called it ducts. So I can come back and call on that search set, and it'll select the ducts each and every time. And the beauty of your search sets is that it'll, even when you update your model, and if ducts have been added to the model or you add another level, this search set will continually update and keep finding all of those ducts in your model. So it's current and accurate. So it's running that search pretty much each and every time that you select that search set. So it's going to get every piece in the model. So just a little bit about now the clash detective tool. Okay, in Navisworks. This is in Navisworks Manage 2015. So what we can do, just carrying on from those search sets, we can actually run these clash detection tools now between particular elements in our Navisworks data set. Okay, so in this example, I have, as we saw with the MEP model and the structure model, I can actually set myself up a new clash test from the clash detective tool. I can call it, for example, duct first steel, and then for my selection criteria, instead of just picking the model itself, I can actually drill into those search sets that I've defined. So this way I've drilled into that duct search or duct search set that I created, and I'll have that selected as in my selection A column for my clash rule. And I want to clash that against, here on the right-hand side of my screen, against the structure. Okay. So once I've defined the selection criteria for my clash, we now are free to run the test. Okay, so we can click on the Run Test button. Once we've run the test, we can see that we have a whole bunch of clashes that it's found, 25 clashes in this example, and we can run through those clashes, and Navisworks will highlight the elements that are applicable to each and every clash. This one here is labelled as just clash 14 at the moment. I have that selected, and you can see that it's highlighting that on the screen, giving us a preview. You can alter and change the way that these are visibly showing up in this clash detection tool. So whether it's greying out the rest of the model, the background, other elements of the model, and it's just highlighting what's clashing between your selection A and selection B columns, highlighting those green and red. Okay, so you do have some flexibility to be able to change those visibilities. On top of that, with your clash management here, you can see that you've got options to assign your clashes to whether they're new, active, reviewed, approved, and you can do that down here, down in the clash results portion of the clash detection tool. So we can assign those rules and those assignments there. Another nice feature of Navisworks is this switchback feature. So we'll just touch on this quickly. What this allows you to do is select a piece of geometry or an element in Navisworks. You then button here, and this allows you to take, if you've got the same model that you've opened in Revit that you've exported into your Navisworks file, you can click on your switchback button in Navisworks here, and it'll take you back to the authoring software, which is in this case would be Revit. It will take you to a view and take you to that element in the view. So there's a bit of setup to get that working, but it does work quite well once you get it going. So it can be quite handy to take you back to the Navisworks, back to the Revit model as need be. Okay, so you can report these clashes out of Navisworks. Okay, so there's a few formats there that we can take out: HTML, XML, as an example, and you've got a few options that you can pick what you actually want to export out. You know, the summary, clash point, date found, etc. And which status of clashes do you want to add in there? Okay, so new, active, reviewed, or approved. Okay, and when you export out, you can export it out to a HTML file here, and this is just an example of what you get in the clash report. You get a HTML file that you can save to a PDF, and you get information about the clash. You also get which is pretty important, the element ID. And just a quick little thing about the markup tools in Navisworks as well. You do have the ability to save views and measure and redline and mark up your tool. So an example on the next screen here is of a view that I've saved with some examples of some of the redline tools that you've got. You can cloud, you can create comments for your design team, and you can save these views out as images. All right, moving along into let's just have an overview look at the recap, some of the features of recap, and how this might assist MEP engineers. So recap 2015, this is the interface, what it looks like. We can create a new project. We can import files, point cloud files into and raw scan files into recap as well. So here's an example of some of the file formats that you can bring in, LiDAR, for example, and TopCon. So the mirror ball feature in recap is enabled inside the scan, so it's attached to the points inside the scan. And if we go to the next screen, the Scanorama and mirror ball feature, you can actually click into that and actually get exactly what it says, I guess, a Scanorama effect to basically navigate around your point cloud file. So the imported scan result is basically what we're looking at here. This is basically what it looks like. Some of the other features that you can use in here for display styles with the mirror ball annotation perspective tools. It's really quite a user-friendly interface. The buttons are quite accessible. And you've also got display options and also got options for distance as well. So let's have a look on the next slide here. Much like in Navisworks, we can measure and take distances off in recap from the point cloud file. And there's a few other tools in there. We can also do angles, measure angles as such. So the measurement tools there work, as I say, much the same as they feel much the same as they feel in Navisworks. If you're used to Navisworks or if you've seen those. You can add text notes as well, okay, so very similar, so we can add text notes into our point cloud file as well. We can create regions and layers to lock and hide points, and on the next, this is where you can create the layers up here on the right-hand side of the screen. And on the next slide here, we can see an example of how we can apply regions, and then we can actually create those regions to then be able to select and fence off certain geometry or certain points in the file here. So as an example here, we've got some equipment that we're cutting out, and you can see that you can actually remove elements of your point cloud file. There's a limit box and a clip scan option in Recap as well. Works much the same as like a section box would work in Revit or in Navis or other programs. So you can actually crop and manipulate your point cloud file around in Recap, as you can see on the screen. And those clip limit box features are available down the bottom of your screen. So saving the file out of Recap, so the RCP is the Recap file format. You can save out and use in Revit, Navisworks, AutoCAD and 3ds Max. And you can import your, specifically you can import your Recap RCP files into Revit. As an example, you can see on the screen, you can link your point cloud files in, and it will come through into your Revit file. All right, and with that, I'll hand over to Samuel to take you through Revit architecture.
Thanks, Brendan. Okay, so I'm going to kick off with Revit Architecture 2015 and just go over some of the new features. On our website, we do have a list of all the features that are available for the Revit platform, including structural engineering and the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing tools. I'm only going to go over some of these for this presentation today. However, if you do want to see more of these that are being shown on the screen, if you go to the Autodesk website, we do have video overviews displaying each one in more detail, which you can look at. So a bit of background, Revit has been around for a long time. So if we go back a little bit, back to 1999, this was the vision for Revit. So it was only ever thought of as being something for doing, say, a 5-story hospital back in 1999. Then as the tool developed in 2002, Autodesk acquires the Revit technologies, and still the methodology is one person, one computer, and a $50 million building. If we fast forward to today, 15 years later, we're doing projects of this type of scale. So this is the Cosmopolitan in Las Vegas, Nevada. It's a $3.9 billion building. It has almost 3,000 rooms. It has a large casino and large retail spaces. This is an enormous project that's well beyond of what was first envisioned when Revit was released. The scale of this is absolutely enormous, all done using the Revit platform today. Closer to Australia and New Zealand, we have the Brisbane Law Courts. So this is a project which, again, is a large project, 64,000 square meters of space. It's a building cost of $570 million. And this is a complex building being done using Revit technologies today. A couple of new things in the 2015 suites is the Application Manager. So this will sit in your toolbox in the right-hand corner, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. You'll see the new Autodesk logo, and it will give you notifications when there are new updates for your software. So you can go to the splash screen for Application Manager and click on Update Software, and then it will list out all the new updates that you can install for your product. So not everybody's going to need a fix for Russian translations and Navisworks quantification. So you can choose to ignore them, or you can install them as per what's needed for your project. So let's start off with some of the tools for architects. One of the ones that Brendan mentioned before was the new Revit 2015 platform is a lot faster. So we've got faster drawing elements in views, faster selection graphics, and as Brendan mentioned, improved performance for MEP views. What our users have been doing in this space when comparing 2014 to 2015 is running an API test for the demo dataset that ships with Revit. And the results were that when you try and open up all the views of the model in 2014, it takes 45 seconds, whereas running that same API house test in 2015, it's 36 seconds. So you're looking at almost 25% improvement performance when you migrate to 2015. And if you're working with a large data set, say with a heavy louvered curtain wall facade like shown on the screen, the performance can be a huge difference when opening up views within your models. A couple of other new tools for graphics is sketchy lines. Sometimes when we're presenting drawings to clients, we want to give it more of an artistic, sort of sketchy look. So you can go to the graphic display options in the Revit 2015 platform and turn on Enable Sketchy Lines, and then play around with the jitter and extension of those lines to get the graphical representation you want. We also have platform enhancements with enhanced hidden lines. So perhaps if I'm working on a project with Brendan and I want to be able to see the mechanical or plumbing components transferring through my property, I can turn on these hidden lines, and I've got greater control of these hidden lines to be displayed automatically to create more accurate and readable documentation. Also, images and schedules are a really powerful application. So Brendan mentioned this for the electrical engineers doing lighting schedules. We can do this in the architectural space with furniture schedules. So we can bring in an image, it could be a photograph, it could be a rendering, it could be a screenshot of that family. And you can place that parameter within your schedules, and you can bring out that information in the schedule table. One thing to note is that you need to place the schedule table on the sheet file for the graphical images to appear. So when you go and test this, and you've got this within your model space, make sure you bring it into a sheet file, and then you'll be able to see those images that you've scheduled out. Another great workflow to reduce the processing power on your computer is the ISC linking tool. So this is one that I tested with a data set from BIM object. So it's an ISC file. It's a heavy ISC file for another house with a lot of scaffolding. When we bring in this information via a linked ISC, it's going to be a lot lighter, and I can actually select individual components within that linked ISC and then bring up the embedded data in my properties palette on the left there. I want to mention the API. A lot's been going on with the application program interface since it was started in 2005. What we're doing is we're starting to use the API to develop Autodesk features like the eTransmit, the new ISC link, and the family browser. So you can see there's been a lot going on with the growth of the API in the last 9 years. Another great thing with the API, if you're on the full version of Revit, you can get access to all these different tools available on the Autodesk Revit Exchange Store. So in the top right-hand corner of majority of the applications is a little blue and white X, and that means the Exchange apps. You can click on that, and that will bring up all these different apps. A majority of them are for free, or you can get them on a trial period, or for a small amount you can pay and you can download these apps to enhance your workflows. This is just a screenshot of the page, so it will have a number of featured apps. So there's bonus tools from Kiwi Codes, there's the level generator tool. A lot of these you see are free, or perhaps for tools like Power Measure, you may only pay $15 US. So you can get all these great apps to help you with your workflows, take out some of the repetitive workflows, and speed up production of your drawings. One of the ones that I really like is the Casework and Interior Joinery tool. This will go through and make all the detail components and allow you to flex them with the design of your geometry and your system families in your model. So please go check this out. You also get free ones with your subscription. So every year, if you're on subscription, you pay your annual subscription, you get your upgrade of your software. But you can also go to the subscription center and get extensions and apps as part of that payment to enhance your workflows. So one of the ones you can see down the bottom right for the MEP users is a space naming utility. You can download that extension, and it's all part of the subscription payment that you make every year. So please go check that out. Another quick note here is for new users wanting to understand how to work with building information model data. I'd recommend you check out the NatSpec BIM portal. There's a number of documents here that you can download, like a BIM object element matrix, reference schedules. You can download this, and this will give you a guide to how to set up and manage your projects. Another thing that's happening is Australia tends to be following along the lines of the UK, where the UK had mandated building information modeling for 2016. There's reports coming out that a lot of contractors are wanting to develop a national BIM library. So this will be a great step for a number of users wanting to work with contractors and manufacturers to be able to go to the national BIM library and get data for their design projects. I now want to move into 3ds Max Design. This is a tool that sits across a number of the Autodesk suites, and it's in the Building Design Suite Premium and Ultimate applications. So this will be a quick overview. What we're starting to see is in Max, more and more people are doing animations. And what we're starting to see in the construction sector is people want to produce construction animations. I want to try and play one now, which was produced by Laing O'Rourke. There is a slight bit of lag here because we're pushing it through Citrix, but this is a construction animation where Laing O'Rourke used the animation tools to produce a compelling sequence of installation and building components to win the bid to do the Leadenhall building in London. If you haven't seen this project, it's a fantastic design. It's being dubbed the cheese grater. And what they've done with this is they've got buy-in from the owners that they can build this building on budget and on time, and they know every single detail of every single component that's been installed, like the curtain walling and the double-skin facade. All of this has been worked out so that it's going to be built within its 36-month time period to complete, and that when the tenants take ownership of that building, they're going to be able to move in on the right dates without delay. So it's a fantastic tool to communicate not just visualizations, but construction sequencing to a wide group of community stakeholders. Another great tool that was released in the 2014 version of 3ds Max Design was the Populate tool. And new for 2015 is the ability now to add more detailed meshes, have people sitting down and interacting with tables and chairs, and also you can start to adjust the texture mapping on the people. So there's nothing to stop you from even texture mapping yourself into the building you're designing. And this is a quick snapshot of an outdoor space where they're populated with people interacting with that landscape design. Another thing you can do here, this is a basic Populate simulation that I put together a couple of years ago for a retail chain. And I haven't done this to be a visualization. It's more to do with the logistics of people interacting with that design. So what I've done is I've just done the point and shoot command where I can do a starting point and an end point for where I want those people to walk. I can create zones where I want them to stand and mingle. And I can look at how the people are going to walk down the aisles, where there may be clashing points, where they may have bottlenecks, where people are queuing, trying to get past. We can use this tool not just as a visualization tool, but we can start to look at the logistics of people interacting with that space. So you can see at the end here, where there's a queue by the checkout counter, there's going to be a bottleneck of people trying to get past. If you want to go a little bit further with tools like this, especially in healthcare, where customers are concerned with the ergonomics or the clinical planning of spaces, you can get third-party people. And these are some people, some medical characters that are obtained from a company called Rocketbox. And what you can do here is you can link your Revit geometry into 3ds Max Design, place the people in the scene, and have them interacting with the scene. So this isn't a render. This is just a real-time screen capture. And we've got one guy down the back of the scene here who's dancing around. He's off his medication. But we can also show nurses and doctors and patients interacting with our designs. We don't need to be a rendering expert or a Max expert. All I've done is I've linked in the Revit model into Max, and then I can run these simulations showing how people interact with the ergonomics of that healthcare fit-out. If you want to go a little bit further, you can also link in AutoCAD data. This is an animation I did for a mining company a while back. It was a basic sort of a demo. And what I'm doing here is using the iRay rendering engine to light my scene and create a bit of depth of field. This shot is kind of detailed. It renders out at about 2 minutes a frame. But I'm able to run batch render animations that'll work while I sleep, and then I can stitch this together and get some quite nice renders, some quite nice output with not too much effort. So it's like either linking Revit or AutoCAD or other file formats like FBX into your scene, and you can get some very compelling animations out for marketing presentation purposes. For those of you who want to go a little bit further with this tool, we have Autodesk Area, which is from our media and entertainment side of the business. And we have particle flow presets that you can download for free. So if you just Google this, you can go to the Autodesk Area website, and there's a number of presets which will allow you to get started with more, say, advanced animations. So this is an animation of a column hitting the ground, and we can even break apart the ground with this particle preset. And I'm not an expert in this. I've just used the presets, loaded in my Revit geometry, and I've created this quick animation showing a column impacting with the ground. Perhaps you might be doing a design where there's a water feature outside the front of your building. There's presets here for animated water, so you just bring this into your scene, attach it to your Revit model, and hit play, and it will animate the water for you. You can also be poetic if you're wanting to do something kind of a little bit different, something that may stand out when you're competing for a job. Animate some dandelions in a meadow. All you need to do now is just place your building in that space. It'll be a very memorable presentation for your clients. Before, Brendan mentioned Recap. So Recap works in AutoCAD, Revit, Navisworks, and it also works with 3ds Max Design. So perhaps you're doing an interior fit-out. You don't have to model up all the other information. You can link in RCP files into the 3ds Max Design environment and then start working up your design with that laser scan as your backdrop. So I've got the video here. A lot of the videos may have a bit of lag in them, but they are available to view on the Autodesk website. What we have here is another Recap scan, which was created with Recap Photo. So a drone was flown around this building. They take photographs, and they stitch them together on the cloud. Recap Photo is outside of the suite. I just need to make that point. So what we've done here is we've created a laser scan capture and a photo recap scan capture. And we're able to stitch these together. So this is the interior scene that's been shown. There was a little bit of a lag. I do apologize. Please check this out on our website. But you can actually bring all this data in. So if you're doing a building in the city and you've got a tower next door, you can bring in a photo recap scan, and that will cast shadows on your design proposal. So it's one application for planning that Recap can be applicable. Another great thing is the materials. They're incredibly easy to use in 3ds Max Design. Materials in Revit are fine, but if you want to get to photorealism, I would encourage you to test out Max. These are some that I've been testing using the V-Ray rendering engine, and you've got some great tools which allow you to do displacement. So I have a timber texture here, and instead of having to model every single timber panel here, I use displacement with just one texture image, and that will give me the realism of those texture panels being arrayed. Also, glass and scratch materials are very easy to replicate within the 3ds Max Design environment. Another great site to check out if you're new to Max and you want to learn or maybe use some sample files is if you go to the Autodesk Knowledge Network and look for the 3ds Max download, we have a very large sample file set that you can download, and they're all preset for interiors. There's people, there's characters, there's sun path animations, there's even cities that you can download for free to help get you started using this tool. So the next screen is just a screenshot of one of the data sets that comes for free that you can load up in Max. So this is an entire city of interesting shaped buildings with twists and splays at the top, which you can download and you can use in your presentations. And again, this is ready to render, so you don't need to become a rendering expert. You can download it and it's ready to go. So staying on time, we're down to the last 15 minutes, and I want to do an overview of Infraworks. And this is going to be the Infraworks 2015 that comes within the Building Design Ultimate, but also I want to touch on Infraworks 360. Infraworks 360 is a separate product, but it has a little bit more functionality because it leverages the power of the cloud to capture site data. So I'll be mentioning which slides relate to 360 and standard Infraworks as we go through this next part of the presentation. So the first part I want to talk about here in Infraworks 360 is the model builder application, and then I'm going to go into some of the data sources and the storyboard creator. So Model Builder is a fantastic new tool that was just released at the beginning of this month, where you can go and capture site information from anywhere in the world. So in this case, I'm looking at building or rebuilding the earthquake-stricken city of Christchurch in New Zealand. So I can go and navigate to the country, and then I can go down to the city that I'm wanting to focus on. So I go to the Christchurch CBD. I set my preview box. I give it a name and put in my email address, and that will capture that 3D information of the city. I can also preview some of the photo information. So if I want to look at a bird's eye view, I can get an idea of the streetscape and the trees and the buildings and their elevations. And then I can request that information, and within about 15 minutes, it will send me back a model ready to go to start developing. So all I do is when I fired up my Infraworks 360 application, down the bottom is my online model section, and it will tell me that my model is ready to download, and I download it to my chosen network or desktop application folder. And this is the result that you get. So I get the city of Christchurch with the roads, some of the tram tracks, the river, the park, and placements for the buildings ready to go. So on the right-hand side of the screen are my data sources, and all of this information was downloaded via the Model Builder and Infraworks 360. So it's a very powerful way to capture information and get started. This tool isn't available in the standard Infraworks 360, in the standard Infraworks that you get in the suite. There are other ways to capture the data, but the Infraworks 360 way of capturing it is probably the quickest to do so. What we can also do is we can set up coordination systems. So we can set up a coordinate system should we want to. So in this case on the screen are a list of all the different coordination systems. So if we look at Australia, we've got the NGA 56, and we can place it on that coordinate system. Or we can work with a local coordinate system, or even choose interactive placing. So maybe we don't need to be geographically correct. We still have the opportunity to intuitively place it within our designated model with the interactive placing tool. So what I've got here on the right-hand side of the screen is a model that I've designed in Revit. I can export that out as an FBX or bring it in natively as a Revit file, and I can place that interactively inside of my design. So this is the model that I made in Revit, and I've gone and placed it in my design, and I can start building up my design proposal for one of the blocks of Christchurch City. So it's very easy to use. Once you place it, you can scale it, you can rotate it, and you can move it around your scene very easily using the push-pull gizmo tools. Also within Infraworks is a very large database library. So you can actually get a number of preset buildings which you can load into your scene. So if I go and choose some of the ones that we've got here, like say the post office, I can load it into my scene, and it's ready to go with the textures, all the geometry. It's incredibly lightweight. You can place it with some trees, you can put in your street bollards and your signage and your railway, and you can get some pretty nice semi-realistic effects with not too much effort, with a very lightweight model. So by default in your Infraworks library, in the buildings and neighborhood scene, in the data source here on the right are gas stations, post offices, and churches. And you can go and load in a number of your own custom models from any other application. You can bring them in as DAE files or FBX files and place them within your database here. Another great tool is the ability to create roads and rails. So I wanted to create a light rail in this instance. And the light rails can be customized with objects. So I can put in a rail car, I can put in the rail style, so whether it's embedded in the road or whether it's above the road. I can also start to embed, say, bollards or curbs, so I can put in people and cyclists. In this case, I've got a few street signs, and I've set up a few rules here to put in different types of spacing. So when I go and load it into my Infraworks environment, you can see on the left-hand side is a snapshot of the car, the tram car that I've placed in my model. And if we zoom out to look at the axonometric view, I've set a rule to place these tram cars at about 200 meters apart. So as I go and draw my rail style around my city, those tram cars are always going to follow that rule. And you can do the same with people and bikes and signposts and bollards. So whatever you want to place in that design will follow that style that you set up within the Infraworks style palette. You can also bring in a number of different file types. In this case, this is a DAE file, so it's like FBX. It holds the geometry and the textures. So you can go to the 3D warehouse online. This is exactly what I did to start building up my city. And what I did here is I found that a user here has created a 3D model of the Christchurch Cathedral. I can download that. I can convert it in 3ds Max Design to a DAE file or an FBX file, and that's going to hold the textures that have come from that 3D warehouse model. And I can replace this default model, which we get from the model builder content. So it gives me a basic footprint and a basic style of what the cathedral could be. Obviously, that's not what the cathedral is. It's a much more detailed Gothic design. But I can replace that with the one that I got from the 3D warehouse. So it's very easy to start gathering lightweight data from online and placing it and building up the city in more detail should you choose to do so. Sometimes you may get some content which may not be textured perfectly. So in this case, I'm looking at the Christchurch Art Centre. I can take this data back into 3ds Max Design, and we have a very powerful texture mapping tool where we can correct these textures before we bring it into the Infraworks environment. So there's all these different workflows where you can capture this data and tidy it up for what's needed in your design proposals. Another great workflow is taking out the max data. So perhaps I'm wanting to propose a number of towers in the Christchurch CBD. I've gone to that Autodesk website, the Knowledge Share website, and I can download all those sample files, and I can quickly look at what it means to place some twisty towers in the CBD of Christchurch and look at how they're going to cast shadows on the neighbouring buildings. In the top left-hand corner, there's an indication of all the file types you can bring in natively into the Infraworks environment. So DWG, of course, IMX, Revit files, Bentley files, IFCs, point clouds, rasters, and SketchUp files. So there's all these different ways you can bring in site data. Another thing that I wanted to do here is place a tower overlooking Hagley Park, a twisting tower on the corner of Riccarton Road and Hagley Park Road. I can start to do basic analysis of the sun and sky settings. So I can set the date and the time. I can even set a wind direction and wind speed and cloud cover and see how it's going to impact that design proposal, how the shadows are going to cast on neighbouring buildings or over the park instantly within that Infraworks environment. Finally, there's another great tool should you want to do animations. So this uses a storyboard creation tool. It's kind of like the storyboard creator that you get within Showcase, which is across all the suites. What we can do here is we can go down and bring up the storyboard tool, and we can quickly create animations by choosing some of the default animation workflows. So in this case, I want to do an animation where it starts at the top and then spins around the building and goes down to a lower level. So for this little bit of the storyboard, I've set it to 12 seconds. There's my starting point, my little screen capture thumbnail here, and then I can set the angle right and the angle down and then hit play, and that will instantly create an animation based on those parameters that I've set in that storyboard. I can do several different types of stories. So the one that was showing was the one that pans around the building. But for the next scene, I may want to do, say, a camera pass type animation. So again, it's very simple to use. I can just go here and record a couple of keyframes. So a starting point, maybe a middle point, and an end point. And then I can add that to my storyboard animation, and the camera will fly around the building and give me a very quick animation. We can also do text overlays. So if you want to be a bit more clear with street names or building names, we can add the street names. So in this case, I put in a street name. I've added that as an overlay to the captions and titles part of my storyboard capture. You can see there. So we can quickly start to build up a story should we be presenting a design proposal to a developer, to a client, to a council, to a community, we can clearly communicate what street or where we are in that design by adding this text caption overlay. Also, we can add the sun path animation. So you could do a sunrise to sunset animation, and you can look at all those shadows, whether it be during the winter or summer times, and look at how the shadows are going to cast within your design or cast on neighboring buildings. So there's all these really powerful tools that you can add into your storyboard to produce compelling animations for presentation purposes. Okay, finally I just want to drop back into 3ds Max Design because there is a workflow between Max and Infraworks. I just want to highlight, across all the Autodesk applications, there's some great interoperability tools which allow you to move between different platforms. So some of the things you do here in Max as well is your sun path animation. So you can link your models in. You can reposition your models in any part of the world with the longitude and latitude coordinates. We can run these animations. We can run people through our models. So I'll just skip over some of this. This is just some screenshots of how easy it is to draw a line from point A to point B, hit the Simulate tab, and then the people are ready to go. You can have them standing in idle areas. You can have them sitting down now in the 2015 application. And then the workflow, if I wanted to bring Infraworks data back into Max, perhaps I want to use some of the great data sets that come with Infraworks. I want this train data set. I can go into Infraworks and export an FBX, and it doesn't have to be the entire model. I can use this tool where I can actually create a box around the object as opposed to the entire model and just export that selected information out from Infraworks and then import it into Max. So that train, I didn't want to remake that. I bring it back into Max. I can add that to my scene where I've got my animated people. And then I can create in Max an animated train. So we've got some really powerful tools where you can draw a spline from point A to point B, attach that train to the spline using path constraints, and then that train will automatically follow that line. So now we go a little bit further. Instead of having just a camera flying around the building, flying around static objects, we can have a camera flying around a moving train, moving people, moving objects within our scene using some of these workflows. So there's a great tool within Max where you can do keyframe animation and you can sync your camera, your sun path, your people, and your train animation to create a more compelling, more photorealistic presentation for all people you need to present to. Should you want to also, if you don't have time to render stuff out, we've got some great tools to do previews. So you can run a quick preview animation if you're just wanting to do a basic sort of sketchy type of animation within Max without having to commit to a render. And this is a quick screenshot of the quality you get back for a preview animation. And then a rendered animation for comparison. So finally, I want to finish up with a more polished output from Infraworks 360. This was done by our specialist at Autodesk, Brett Casson. He has used these same principles that I've just shown to build the entire city of Sydney. And this is a quality that you can get of exporting out an animation and producing it for a client presentation using some of the principles of scanning models, bringing in DAE files, FBX files, Revit files, and the results you're going to get when you come to produce large-scale models like entire cities. So this is just one of the cities that Brett's done. He's also done Tokyo, Melbourne, where he has 5,000 buildings sitting within Infraworks for presentations. So I'm going to hand back over to Brendan, and we're going to launch the Q&A part of the session. Looks like we're finished on time. And for those of you new to these type of presentations, there is a chat and a question toolbox. So just type in your questions into that question panel, and we will do our best to answer those questions for you. You just close that one and then drop it down. Scroll down here. There you go. So please type in your questions into the question tool panel, and we will answer them. Should you want us to go back to any slides or perhaps fire up the software to see anything in particular, now is your chance to do so.
So we'll just take a couple of minutes to monitor these questions to see if there are any coming through. Looks like everyone's happy at the moment.
So we can come back to this while you're thinking about your questions. If we just go to the last little bit.
Yeah. So just a bit of a blurb here about our customer satisfaction program. So just for your knowledge, Autodesk may ask you from time to participate in these, particularly if you've done training with us or so on and so forth. So we'd appreciate it, and if you have a positive experience with us, with A2K Technologies, we'd be grateful if you communicated it back to Autodesk and by rating us. And obviously, the 9s and the 10s are the good scores.
We won't talk about the other one. Okay, so we've got some questions coming. So the first one is a 3ds Max to link with Revit program. Yeah. So when you're designing your building within Revit, you can use the Suite Workflows add-in to link your model to 3ds Max Design. You can take data back from Max into Revit, but it's not linked. It's done as a stat file. So I will just quickly bring up, can I just bring up Google here? Let's go back to the Google screen. So this is, I'm old school when it comes to, you got this Windows interface where tries to make everything intuitive, but I tend to find it back to front. So what I do have here for any of the Max users out there interested in workflows, they have a YouTube channel. And if you go to that YouTube channel, I do have a workflow which gives you a quick starting point on how to link your model from Revit out to 3ds Max Design. So we just go down a little bit and we go to the Revit link to 3ds Max Design in 2 minutes. You can click on this link and it will show a basic demo house. It is just lagging a little bit because of our bandwidth because we're running Citrix and Max, but it will show you how to export it out and then bring it into Max, set up some basic cameras and lighting, and then run out a render. So I won't run through all this. We're just going to get back to the questions. But please check out this workflow on my YouTube channel under my name, Samuel Mcalister. Next question is to do with probably a Navisworks question. I'll hand back over to Brendan.
How to run automated conflict checks within Revit architecture when importing from Revit structure.
The interference checker.
Yeah, if I'm understanding that question correctly, I imagine you probably want to use a tool called the interference check within Revit. If you want to be just doing clashes just within Revit, it sounds to me like what that question is asking, not using a Navisworks clash tool. There is a tool in Revit called interference check. If we can just show you that quickly. We jump into Revit. On the Collaborate tab here, you can see that you've got an interference check tool. Okay, so this is the clash detection tool that I briefly took us all through in Navisworks. There is a somewhat of a clash detection tool available inside Revit itself. However, it's not as powerful. You can't really create the rules that you can in Navis, and you can't control it. However, it works much the same way in terms of you have two lists, and you can pick from either side to clash between particular categories here. You can also report those clashes out. There's functionality to report those clashes out, similar to how we were doing those in Navisworks. However, it's important to note that I think the clash detection tools in Navisworks are much more powerful than the Revit tools. simply because you can apply rules, you can add your search sets, and you can manage your clashes a lot easier, particularly for bid coordination.
And to add to that, Navisworks reads about 56 different file formats. So in an ideal world, we would love for everybody to be using Autodesk software, but that's not the reality. So instead of having to link in different file formats into Revit, Navisworks will bring in pretty much any different file format, and it will come in as a very lightweight model. So you've got a very heavily serviced building, and you try to bring all that data into Revit, it could slow down, whereas Navisworks, it has a very lightweight kind of viewer, and you can bring in a lot of complex information from any different file format and run clash detection very easily and get some great results out. So Interference Checker will do the job, but it does have limitations. Navisworks Manage is the tool that will allow you to do more complex interference checking or clash detection.
And exporting those files to the NWC format like we were describing, just exactly what Samuel's saying there, that how it will be much quicker in the Navisworks environment with those formats in place as well. Looks like there's not many other questions coming through, so that's a good sign. Hopefully everybody's happy. Yep.
So we go back to the PowerPoint. So if you do have any more questions, you can email A2K Technologies and we will do a follow-up, and I believe this webinar will be made available.
Yes.
We are recording it.
This webinar is being recorded and will be made available. And yes, you can email solutions there, the details on the screen there, solutions@a2ktechnologies.com.au if you do have any further questions. There's also the telephone details there as well. So if you do have any other further questions, you can talk to us, and we'll be happy to help you out. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, guys.
Thanks.